I moved to Briarwood for the quiet. That's what I told people anyway. The real reason was simpler. I needed somewhere cheap, somewhere far from my old life, somewhere nobody knew my name. Briarwood was the kind of town you miss if you blink while driving past it. One main road, a grocery store that closed at 8, a diner with a flickering neon sign, and streets that curved lazily through rows of identical houses. The kind of place that felt like it had been designed to be forgotten. My rental sat at the end of one of those streets, Briarwood Lane. It wasn't a bad place. Small, 2 bedrooms, white siding, narrow porch. The kind of house that looked like it came pre-furnished with silence. No nearby traffic, no barking dogs, no kids screaming in the street. Just quiet, except for the house across the road. It stood at the very end of Briarwood Lane, past mine, where the pavement narrowed into cracked asphalt and the streetlights thinned out. The house was older than the others, taller. Its roof sagged slightly in the middle, like it had exhaled and never quite breathed back in. The windows were dark. The paint on the porch railings had peeled into long strips that curled like dead leaves. On my first night, I noticed the porch light was on. Not bright, just a soft yellow glow that didn't quite reach the edge of the steps. No car in the driveway, no movement behind the windows, just the light. I assumed someone lived there. The next morning, when I asked my landlord about it while signing the last of the paperwork, he paused for just a second too long. "The place at the end?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, "across from mine." He nodded. "Been empty a while." "But the light was on." He shrugged. "Must have been left on." It was a weak answer, but I let it go. Over the next few days, I started noticing little things. The porch light stayed on, every night. Sometimes it flickered, sometimes it didn't. No car ever appeared, no mail piled up, no trash cans at the curb on pickup day. And yet, the light stayed on. I asked a woman at the grocery store checkout if anyone lived there. She scanned my items, the beep of the register echoing in the empty store. "The house at the end of Briarwood Lane," she repeated. "Yeah." Her eyes flicked up to me, then back down. "Don't know," she said. "Probably no one." That night, I stood on my porch longer than I meant to, staring at the house across the road. The air was thick with late summer humidity. Cicadas buzzed in the trees. My own porch light cast a pale circle on the steps. The other house just sat there, watching. That's what it felt like anyway. I laughed at myself, went inside and locked the door. A week passed. Then 2. The porch light across the street never turned off. Sometimes, late at night, I thought I heard something. Not footsteps, not voices, just movement. The faint creak of wood, a soft thump, like something heavy being set down. Whenever I looked, nothing changed. The windows stayed black, the porch stayed empty. It started to bother me more than I wanted to admit. One evening, as I was taking my trash to the curb, I noticed something new. There were footprints in the dust on the driveway across the street. Not fresh tire tracks, footprints. Barely visible, like someone had walked through a thin layer of dirt and stopped just short of the porch steps. They faced the house. I stood there longer than I should have. The prints looked normal, adult-sized. Nothing strange about them, except there were no prints leading away. I told myself the wind must have covered the rest. I told myself a lot of things. The disturbing event happened on a Thursday. I remember because it was trash night, and the street was lined with bins. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the sky was clear. I had stayed up late watching something mindless on my laptop, trying not to think about how quiet the town got after dark. Around 1:30 in the morning, the power flickered. Just once. My lights dimmed, then steadied. Across the street, the porch light went out. For the first time since I'd moved in, the house at the end of Briarwood Lane went completely dark. I didn't realize how much that light had anchored me until it was gone. The street felt suddenly deeper, the shadows heavier. I stood by my window, watching the dark shape of the house. Nothing happened. After a minute, I laughed quietly and stepped away. That's when I heard the knock. Not on my door, on the door across the street. The sound carried in the stillness of the night. A single, firm knock. I froze. There was no porch light now, but the moon was bright enough to outline the shape of the doorway. I could see the door clearly. No one stood there. A few seconds passed. Another knock, this one harder. My heart started to beat faster. I stepped closer to the window, pressing my forehead lightly against the glass. The door across the street opened. Just a crack. The darkness inside was absolute. No interior light, no movement. Then the door closed again. Slowly. I held my breath. Nothing else happened. No footsteps, no voices, no light turning back on. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I walked across the street. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Or the need to prove to myself that I hadn't imagined it. The house looked worse up close. The porch boards were warped, the paint peeled in long, curling strips. The front door was old wood, scuffed and faded. I stood at the bottom of the steps. There were no footprints now. The dust was smooth. I climbed the steps slowly, the boards creaking under my weight. The door was closed. The handle was cold when I touched it. Locked. I knocked. The sound felt too loud in the quiet street. No answer. I stepped back, embarrassed by my own nerves, and went home. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. That night, the porch light stayed off. The darkness across the street felt thicker without it. I went to bed early, telling myself I was being stupid. The town was quiet. That was the point of moving here. Sometime after midnight, I woke up. I don't know what woke me. There was no sound, no dream I could remember, just the feeling of being awake. I turned over and looked out the window. The house across the street was dark, but the front door was open, just enough to see the black gap of the interior. I stared at it for a long time. The streetlight down the road flickered. The shadows shifted slightly. The door didn't move. I pulled my curtains closed. In the morning, the door was shut again. The next few days passed in a blur of unease. The porch light never came back on. The house stayed dark. I started sleeping with a lamp on in my bedroom. On Sunday evening, I saw someone standing in my front yard. I had just pulled into my driveway when I noticed the figure near the edge of the lawn. They stood with their back to me, facing the house across the street. At first, I thought it was a neighbor. Then I realized I'd never seen them before. They were tall, wearing dark clothes, standing completely still. I got out of my car slowly. "Hey," I said. The word felt small in the open air. The figure didn't move. I took a step closer. "Can I help you?" They turned their head slightly. I couldn't see their face. The angle and the fading light hid it in shadow. For a moment, I thought they were going to speak. Instead, they walked across the street, not toward the sidewalk, straight into the yard of the empty house. They stopped at the bottom of the porch steps and stood there, waiting. The front door didn't open. They didn't knock. They just stood. After a minute, they turned and walked away, disappearing down the street. I didn't follow. That was the last time I saw anyone near the house. 2 nights later, the porch light turned back on. Just like before. Soft yellow glow, empty steps, dark windows. I sat on my couch and watched it for a long time. The light flickered once, then steadied. I thought about the knock, the opening door, the figure in my yard. I thought about how no one in town seemed to know or want to know who lived there. Around 2 in the morning, the light went out again. I didn't go to the window this time. I stayed where I was, staring at the wall, listening to the quiet. In the silence, I thought I heard the faint creak of wood. From across the street, I moved out of Briarwood 3 weeks later. I didn't tell my landlord why. I didn't tell anyone in town why. When I packed my car, the porch light across the street was on. As I pulled away, I looked in my rearview mirror. For just a moment, I thought I saw the front door open, but the street curved and the house slipped out of view. I still think about that place sometimes, about the light, the knocks, the door that opened to nothing. I tell myself there was a logical explanation, someone squatting, bad wiring, my imagination filling in gaps. But every now and then, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I picture that house at the end of Briarwood Lane. The porch light glowing, and someone standing in the dark, waiting for it to turn back on.